Hello everyone, we are from Group 11 discussing the debate topic. The widespread use of technology is creating digital divide that will cause inequality in our society. In the next few slides, we are going to describe to you why we believe this is true. It's interesting to know that this particular chart does not have a heading. So what do you make out of it? I would like to ask each of you to pause for a moment, look at the graph closely, and think for a moment. This graph describes the digital divide in the nutshell. It talks about percentage of internet access available to all the countries across the world. It's easy to infer that countries colored in blue have larger percentages and are developed in comparison to darker shades of red, like countries in Africa and Asia that have little or no access to the internet. The question to ask here: does access to internet and other technologies make country prosperous? Before dwelling to further detail, let's define what digital divide actually means. In early 20th century, digital divide was referred to division between people who had access to phone and people who didn't. Today, it is the division of people who have access to internet and those who don't. What is interesting to know that there are only 2 out of 7 billion people who are online today, which was clearly evident from the previous chart, which comes to say that 5 out of 7 people don't have access to this particular video, and you're the lucky two. Now, how does this affect the world? My friends will further elaborate on each of these points. I'll introduce them in the broadest level. Lower economic growth, well, no doubt that from the first chart that developed countries who are richer have higher percentage access to internet and have greater economic power. It is interesting to know that countries like India and China, which have percentages in their in 40s and 50s, have been growing faster thanks to their ever increasing access to internet. But countries in Africa have no access to internet and have been completely left out. And within these countries, there is economic inequality, as jobs today are easily available to people with information, and as majority of these jobs are posted online, and also every job requires basic computer skills. The question to ask here is, what happens to the one who does not have access to internet? Education content is also available all over the internet, and access to it is making students today smarter in comparison to the ones without it. If we closely look at the first chart again, majorities of the countries in blue are stable and with stable governance. Information is making people wiser in choosing their leaders. With information available online, patients can self-diagnose and take care of their health better in comparison to people with no information. This illustrates from the first chart again that AIDS was prevalent in Africa thanks to no information. And the final point, in general, better quality of life thanks to social media and entertainment.
So let's look at some of the factors contributing to digital divide and its implications. So economic disparity. So according to the 2012 Pew report, Digital Differences, only 62% of the people in households making less than $30,000 a year use the internet, while those making $50,000 to $74,999, that percentage jumped to 90. So we can see how the divide, as in the access to internet resources, is kind of limited within people who are not economically so well off. So it's basically affordability and lack of knowledge. By affordability, we mean whether people have access to the internet, or whether they have the hardware, computer or devices to access internet. and also the lack of knowledge, as in some people might have access but they might not be aware of the advantages of using the internet. So that leads to a divide because of economic disparity. Education is another point wherein a lot of people have access to online resources if they have access to the internet. The difference in the access to information and also to online education kind of creates a divide among people, since education is your key to jobs. Geographic differences. Now, geographic differences are kind of related to how we have internet connectivity in different places. So, places with low internet connectivity are kind of left out, and we see that. Places with greater internet connectivity are kind of do better than places which do not, for obvious reasons. So, developed versus underdeveloped and developing nations, we see that developed nations generally have better infrastructure for internet and versus developing and underdeveloped nations. So, that leads to a lot of difference in the access level to internet, which in turn makes a set of population more privileged than the others in terms of the advantages that they are able to reap out of internet access. So looking at demographic differences, age. So elderly lack the know-how, and the problem is they do not even see the relevance, which is why we have a generation gap of IT. And we would acknowledge generally that younger people are better at adopting to new products and are able to learn faster than the older people, which is why the older generation is left out in this internet age. Now, gender is another factor, as in globally we have seen that 37% of females have internet access as opposed to 41% males, and this gap is more pronounced in developing versus developed countries. Now, when we talk about ethnicity, it has been seen that some ethnic groups are kind of left out when it comes to like bridging the gap of the digital divide. Like they are not able to cross over because of constant technological advancements. And we see we have an example of the African American in US. Like mostly they were employed in agricultural jobs, and when digitization kind of removed the labor jobs, they moved to factories, which is again digitized and automated, and people are losing jobs there as well. And now it's kind of an uncertain. They have an uncertain future ahead of them because they are not able to keep up with the technology, and some don't even have the basic know-how and research. So culture again plays a role in widening the digital divide, and it basically relates to how open or closed society is culturally. Some societies accept and embrace outside knowledge and free flow of information, while others are closed and they do not want outside information to come in or go out. And we see one such example in North Korea, which is kind of has secluded itself from the world, and it is detrimental for the general population in more ways than one. Now, social capital. Now, internet access helps us capitalize through the use of networking. We are able to collaborate in many ways, and in a way it leads take advantage of the collaboration in job search. Now we also have sites such as Indeed.com. So we definitely know that those who have digital education go to these sites. Like it's a common thing to go to these sites and kind of get access and information about the relevant jobs. And we have LinkedIn to connect with people professionally. But somehow, like this digital penetration has reached the blue collar jobs as well, and we have sites like TaskRabbit, wherein you have handyman kind of job. Suppose you have some plumbing work and you post it, and you can get someone who has plumbing skills to come over and work for you. So this kind of if someone is technologically educated, as in if someone uses the internet, that person becomes more uh, has access to more jobs and is able to utilize his or her skills in a better way of the job. So what we can see is that these factors which kind of contribute to the digital divide is leading us to a vicious cycle, as in these are the factors, and it's leading to the implications. Like it's kind of feeding itself. Like all these factors is leading to the widening of the gap with technological advancement.
So continuing, I'll be focusing on how information technology is causing imbalance in economic situation of people, mainly with respect to jobs. It is becoming increasingly difficult nowadays to find a job that does not require some knowledge of computers. Technology today is integrated into almost every facet of life, and you require technical skills to work on these jobs. We can see in this slide that nearly 96% of working Americans use some form of technology in daily work, and 62% of them use internet as a part of their daily jobs. And this number is expected to increase a lot more in the future. The next point I would like to make is that the number of jobs that are available in the market that do and do not require computer literacy. We can see from the stats that as of now, more than 50% of the jobs require computer literacy, and this number is expected to grow by 77% by 2020. So continuing with the reduction of non-technical jobs in the United States, there are many sectors which saw a reduction in jobs due to automation and increase in use of technology. In graph, we can see there is a steep decrease of jobs in manufacturing and agricultural sectors. This is mainly because of use of automation and heavy machinery in those sectors. Next, I would like to make a point on the amount of money earned by technical and non-technical workers. To put it otherwise, workers with computer literacy and without computer literacy. You can see in the picture that an average utility worker earns about $12, while a helpdesk operator earns about $17 per hour. The difference between the two jobs being use of computer and nothing else. Helpdesk operator does not involve in coding or developing applications. Thus, information technology has a huge effect on skills, number of jobs, and salaries in the job market, thereby further increasing divide in the society.
The modern capitalistic business model greatly leverages the power of digitization to gain access and control to information, thereby gaining dominance over competition and the consumers. This has huge implications in terms of societal inequalities in income, access to information, lifestyle, and general awareness and wellness. Major corporations and internet companies use AI and algorithms to influence and run many aspects of human life. For example, Google's indexing algorithms decide what information to promote, what users see on the internet for the most part, which we also call as screen bias, and alter people's perception and behavior through location-based updates and recommendations, to name a few. Recommendation engines of Amazon and eBay learn from customers' purchase history, which they use to formulate newer forms of consumerism, wherein they casually nudge people into certain buying patterns and lifestyles, thereby exerting psychological advantage over the common buyer. This has become possible because of the information they have gathered on the users, giving them greater power over them. And the only way to access the internet at large is through services like these and the devices with limited capabilities, which can be easily manipulated for their gains. Digitization has spawned an unsympathetic psychological and economical model which we have come to experience and know as the need for instant gratification, which is defined as a desire to experience pleasure or fulfillment without delay or deferment. The exchange of goods and services these days has seen an enormous growth in quantity and pace because of the ever growing demand from buyers. The growth has created an imbalance where the distributors and retailers make huge profits, leaving the actual producers with the thinnest slice of the share. Also, the manual labor that goes behind these distribution networks has inequality programmed right into them. Behind every delivery of your Amazon Prime order on the same day and an Uber pickup that arrives at your door within 3 minutes of booking a ride, there is a whole mass of population engaged and even forced into manual labor and intellectual activities to meet the needs of the few. This is inequality at a macro level and hinders progress.
Continuing, I would like to talk about the effects of IT in healthcare. There has been a recent push in healthcare towards information technology, such as electronic medical records and archiving patient records for analytics and other purposes. Healthcare's digital divide is getting bigger. Black Book research firm conducted a recent survey, and they found out that 57% of consumers with access to technology, hospital technology, were skeptical of EMR and other related apps. The lack of privacy and data hacking played a huge role towards this attitude regarding healthcare technology. Further on, 87% of patients surveyed indicated that they would hesitate to share their medical information. Another consequence of this digital divide was that less than a third of elderly adults use web for health information and are unlikely to use electronic health records. This puts at-risk groups at a disadvantage. In conclusion, given the various points stated by my friends, we would like to conclude that the widespread use of IT does in fact widen the digital divide. It creates a class of haves and have-nots on the basis of access to IT. Governments should take active measures to bridge the digital divide and make sure a section of the population isn't left behind due to exponential growth in IT. Thank you.